911, what is your emergency?
I'm at a friend's house. He's out of town, and I came here to check on his wife, and she's dead on the floor.
Okay.
The address is...
Okay, stay on the line. Sir, hold on, stay on the line.
Yes.
Okay, you're doing very well. Good job. Just a moment, we're going to connect you. They're going to ask for the address. EMS and fire, what is the address of the emergency? Okay, and is that a house or an apartment, sir?
The house.
Tell me exactly what happened.
My friend, she's a doctor. I'm a doctor. She came home last night. Her husband is in Connecticut, and she was supposed to go to work at 9 o'clock. She called me, and I was on my way into work, so I swung by, and she's dead on the floor. And there's a hammer at the side, and she's bashed in the back of the head.
Stay on the line with me. Sheriff's office, are you on the way? Yes, we are. Okay. All right, and so you said you're a doctor?
Yes, I am.
Okay, are you with her now?
I'm outside of the house because I don't know if there's anybody in the house.
Okay. All right, so how old is she?
She's 50-ish. 47-ish.
All right, sir, and is she awake?
No, she's dead on the floor. She's cold.
And
the back of her head is bashed in, and there's blood everywhere.
Okay. All right. So I do have paramedics, fire department, also law enforcement is on the line with us. Okay, they're going to be going out. Okay.
Okay.
So I want you to stay on the line one moment. Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to stay here till I get here because I don't know if anybody's still in the house.
Okay. All right.
Was right.
All right. Just stay on the line, okay? The sheriff's office has questions, and they're going to counsel you on what to do next. Okay. Sir, are you inside the residence then?
No, I'm not. I'm standing in the driveway.
Okay. And then when you walked inside the house, you said the blood was dry, or what did you say?
Yeah, half the blood is dry, half is wet. And she's cold. She's dead cold.
Okay, and there's the hammer sitting next to her, and you had left it, and did you touch anything?
No, I did not touch anything. I touched her. I shook her a little bit.
Okay.
She's dead cold.
All right, one moment. You're doing really well. So the last time you had seen her is what time?
Probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago.
2 or 3 weeks ago. Okay, and you said she returned today?
I don't know when she came back, but she was supposed to go back. She was supposed to go to work today at 9 o'clock. I knocked on the front door, and nobody answered. The lights were on. I could see her purses on the countertop, and she didn't answer. I pounded, and he gave me the key code to get into the garage door. I opened the garage door, and the door leading to it was open. One of the dogs ran out. I don't know if he left or not. And I walked in. I just opened up the door, or walked in the door, and she's dead on the floor. And there's a big bash in the back of her head.
Okay, is the vehicle at her house or no?
The vehicle is at her house, yes, in the garage. The garage door was closed.
Okay, and when you left, did you left the same way you entered, or did you leave the front door?
No. I touched her, and I just freaked out, and I walked outside.
Okay, when you walked outside, did you walk out the front door, or did you walk back out the garage door?
Back out the garage door, and I closed the door because the dogs were in there.
Okay, and so you were there because they asked you to take care of the house, is that correct?
Whatever.
And he received a call from work saying she wasn't there?
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine.
You know, he's her office manager.
Oh, she's the office manager of his business?
No, he's the office manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where is he right now?
I believe he's in Connecticut.
And you didn't see anything else, other than...
No, I didn't go in the house. I'm afraid somebody's in the house. Somebody killed her.
Right.
It's a murder. Right? She's bashed in the back of the head.
Okay.
You know, I can't see her falling or anything like that. I just looked and I thought, my God, she's my friend.
Right, exactly. And you're doing a fantastic job. I'm sure they're going to have a little bit further, more questions and everything for you. You're doing great, okay?
Okay.
All right, I just let them know that you're outside.
The fire guys are here.
Okay, great.
And, she's dead.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Lauren.
I am Ken.
And this is Paradise After Dark.
Dark.
Paradise After Dark is a bi-weekly podcast covering true crime,
Unsolved mysteries,
missing people,
urban legends, and the dark side of the Sunshine State. First, if you'd like to support the show, please subscribe at patreon.com/Paradise After Dark podcast.
On Patreon, you'll have access to weekly bonus episodes, our monthly spin-off show, Vacation Edition, discounts on our merchandise, and more.
You can also check out our website at paradiseafterdark.com for our latest episodes, links to our social media, and our Etsy store, and a special little donate button if you just want to help out the show.
If you have a question, a Florida case suggestion, or you'd just like to chat, please email us at paradiseafterdarkpodcast@gmail.com.
So, Lauren, what are we discussing?
This week we are discussing the murder of Dr. Teresa Sievers.
And this one here for us and a lot of people that listen, it's pretty close to home.
It is pretty close to home. And I just want to say that this case has been on our radar since day one. We're coming up on 2 years now on this podcast, and I've been following this and just waiting for the right time to do this case. So this is going to be part 1 of 4.
Ooh.
Now, if you'd like to not have to wait for all 4 episodes, go ahead on over to Patreon and subscribe, because there you'll be able to listen and binge all 4 episodes at one time. If not, part 1 is today, part 2 is tomorrow, and part 3 and 4 are going to be next week. So try and follow along. This is a complicated, so many details. It's just, you'll understand when we get going.
Yeah, if someone that's not real familiar with this case, it's a mind boggler.
It
for
is.
Sure.
It is.
And you kind of have to pay attention, and you got to kind of know.
It's a mind blower.
Exactly. Everything kind of leads into certain things. I mean.
All right. Well, let's just dive into it. Dr. Teresa Sievers was a well-known and loved doctor in Bonita Springs, Florida. She had her own medical practice, Restorative Health and Healing Center, in nearby Estero, Florida, where she practiced holistic medicine and specialized in hormone therapy.
The holistic medicine is like a
It's not. It's more
less invasive.
Right. It's more like Eastern medicine, where they stay away from pharmaceuticals as much as possible.
Okay.
And do a more natural approach.
Yep, that's the word I was looking for, is natural.
So Teresa Ann Tottenham, that was her maiden name, was born and raised outside New Haven, Connecticut. She was her high school valedictorian and then graduated with a master's degree in biology from Fairfield University in 1990. She received her medical degree from Ross University in 1996. After completing her residency at the University of Florida Medical Center in Jacksonville, she moved to Charleston, South Carolina, where she met her first husband, Kenny Cousins. They married in 2000, then moved to Cousins' hometown of St. Petersburg, Florida, but they later divorced in 2003.
Yeah, and Sievers' sister Stacy introduced Teresa to a man, Mark Sievers. Now, the couple married soon after, and the Sievers moved to Bonita Springs in 2005. They built a house. They had a couple children, opened a holistic medical practice together that Lauren spoke about. And Teresa and her husband, Mark, I guess you could say, and their 2 daughters seemed to have a good life. They, with all the accolades for her that Lauren spoke of earlier, she had her own practice, which was thriving. Patients raved about her. Mark was the business manager at her medical practice. And all seemed well with the world. All was perfect.
Now, Teresa, standing at 4 feet 11 inches tall, made a big impact on those who were fortunate enough to know her personally and professionally. She was tiny and just cute as a bug's ear, former patient Marion Ziegler McAfee told Wink News. A dynamo in a tiny package.
Annie Lisa, Teresa's other sister, described her as a hard-charging but compassionate mother and doctor who rarely hid her feelings. Lisa said she and her sister were close, often communicating several times a week. Although she noticed her sister becoming slightly more distant in the weeks before her death, Lisa chalked it up to job-related stress, which anyone who gets up and goes to work every morning understands that.
Michelle Morton, a former co-worker of Teresa, told Wink News how they had worked together at Our Mother's Home, a safe haven for teen moms. Wonderful example of a woman of God and community. She was a leader, said Morton. Morton called Teresa Sievers an inspiration. Linka Spiska worked side by side with Teresa Sievers for 4 years. She's always been a Mother Teresa to me. I don't see her any other way. Teresa not only attended church at the Good Samaritan's inclusive Catholic community of Fort Myers, but she was also one of their most active volunteers. She helped the homeless, the poor, and the disabled. Dr. Sievers helped us by seeing those people pro bono, Pastor Judy Lee said. That's why I say she's an angel. She was an angel in life, and through the family now she is an angel in her death, said Lee. We'll always love her.
So she was seeing homeless people sometimes to help them out.
Pro bono, yeah.
Yeah. So she wasn't just going there, showing up, making money. I mean, she was passionate about her profession.
Mm-hmm.
And what's that? They have that Hippocratic oath, they call it.
Right, yeah.
Where, if somebody's in need, you help them. And that's kind of so it says a lot about somebody that actually does something for the community above and beyond themselves. Now, in June 2015, while the Sievers family was visiting family up in Connecticut, Teresa Sievers returned home to Florida alone on the evening of Sunday, June 28th. She called her husband, Mark, to tell him she had arrived safely. And this was the last time that anyone heard from her.
On the morning of June 29, 2015, Teresa did not show up for work. Teresa was usually very punctual, and it was very strange for her to not show up. A concerned coworker, Sandra Hoskins, called Mark Sievers and asked him if he wanted her to go to the house to check on Teresa, but Mark said no. Instead, Mark called another family friend, Dr. Mark Petratus, and asked him to swing by the house and check on his wife. Dr. Petratus found Teresa cold to the touch in a pool of her own blood on her kitchen floor. A hammer lay next to her body. Now, as you heard, we played the 911 clip in the intro of this episode.
Yeah, which is, it grabs you.
It's pretty chilling. You can tell that he's pretty shaken up.
Oh yeah, he's very calm, but yet you can definitely hear like the fear in his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if that's fear. I mean, you can definitely tell that I think it's a mix of emotions.
Right. And in the 911 call, he described the scene as she had been bashed in the head.
Yeah, he was very detailed too about his actions.
And she was cold to the touch. She was definitely dead. He said, dead cold, I think is what he said. Yeah.
And he even said, this is a murder. He knew right away. This is not something that this is not a slip and fall case. And the lady said, did you touch her? Yes, I touched her, but he didn't manipulate her in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not like he tried to do, he knew that she was able
gone.
To be revived. Yeah.
Right.
Because he even said, no, she's dead. And you can tell when he said that, it was like, my heart drops.
Mm-hmm.
You can just feel his heart drop. I was definitely impressed with the way he was so clear about his actions, what he did. Like, I came in the door, I did this, I touched this, I touched that, and then I came back out. So it's almost like,
maybe he watches a lot of Investigation Discovery.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something like that, but I'm thinking, he's relaying this message.
He's also a doctor.
Well, exactly. And that's where, it wasn't just, oh my God, I don't know what happened. He didn't just panic. I mean, the guy was so calm, cool, collected. He made the call, as you heard. And I mean, it was like, and she kept saying, you're doing really well. You're doing really well. I think she could hear in his voice, but he was, because that 911 call is a big part of this case.
Right.
So.
That'll come in to play later.
Now, obviously, he calls 911, and then.
When police arrived, they found that the door looked like it had been jimmied open, and they found a crowbar in the grass.
Crowbar.
On the bloody tile floor in the kitchen, they saw Teresa's wallet, missing a credit card. And right there was the murder weapon, a hammer caked with blood and clumps of hair. An autopsy performed by the Lee County Medical Examiner's Office said she died from blunt force trauma. The autopsy showed 17 crescent-shaped and irregular indentations on the front, rear, and both sides of Teresa's head, as well as skull fractures, extruding brain fragments, and a fracture at the base of her skull.
Yeah, it was actually reported somewhere that she was hit with such force from the hammer that it actually drove skull fragments into her brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
I mean, it's horrible. This is a horrible.
She was savagely beaten.
Exactly. This is not just somebody that just.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, this was, like you said, savage. That's a good way to put it. So, Now, Sandra Hoskins, the nurse who first contacted Mark about Teresa not showing up at work, told NBC2 in an exclusive interview that Mark's demeanor was very strange that morning. Now, Sandra had grown close to the family during her 7 years working at the medical office, and the family actually even went to her wedding. She was not just some random coworker, so this is a family friend, if you will.
Yeah.
So she says, I called Mark and I said, Mark, I know you told me not to go to your house, but I don't know what's going on. And his words were, do not tell anyone the doctor's dead. Reporter asked, did that seem strange to you? Hoskins, yes, because anybody else, the normal reactive behavior would be, yes, absolutely, Sandra, please lock up the office right now. I don't care about the patients. I care about my wife. And that's who would not.
Right. So he's more concerned about people not finding out that she's dead than he is about the fact that she's dead.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, Teresa's mother-in-law, Bonnie Sievers, told detectives that she was at the house the day before. She claims that Mark told her not to set the alarm so the dogs wouldn't set off the motion detector. She felt that if she had set the alarm, this never would have happened. The community was shocked by the beloved doctor's death.
Now, that's something I found very odd. Don't set the alarm because the dogs will set it off? What, is that like motion sensors? Don't
Yeah,
they?
that's what I was thinking when I read that.
Remember when we had ours installed, didn't they adjust it for our dogs?
They said, and I don't know about every alarm system,
I
but
understand
anything
that.
over 40 pounds could set off the alarms. So
we don't know the size of their animals, though, do we?
No.
Okay, but I mean, I was concerned about that.
My thing is, okay, so you have these dogs. I mean, obviously they live with you every day.
Exactly.
Don't set the alarm so the dogs won't set off the motion detector. So do you just never set your alarm?
You know, now that you said that, I don't know why I didn't think of that, but you're absolutely right. What do they do in normal circumstance?
Right.
I don't know why I didn't think of that.
It's weird.
Right.
Yeah. That whole scenario is weird.
Well, like you were saying about the whole, everyone was scared. The neighbors were scared, obviously, because this happens and you don't know if this is random, if it was whatever. This could have been somebody breaking and entering. So, of course, everybody's going to be scared. And now many of the residents have been wanting answers from the sheriff's office, especially after authorities asked residents in the area to lock their doors and remain vigilant. Because I guess if you started getting this from the sheriff's office, you're like, wait, you guys don't know what's going on yet?
There's a psycho killer on the loose?
Exactly, and not someone that's just going and killing. I mean, it's a brutal murder. So now officials would not say if the crime was targeted, if it was random, but they say they were working and they had several leads in the case. So they felt that they had somewhere to go with it. Now, on two separate sources close to the investigation told Wink News that Teresa Sievers was killed with a hammer. And several neighbors told Wink News that they heard screaming the morning of the murder. One heard a man arguing, while another heard what sounded like a shrill coming from a woman, which would make sense if someone's getting brutally beaten with a hammer. And again, like we said, was there a psycho killer loose in the neighborhood? Was there somebody that broke in and something went wrong? Did she surprise a burglar? Because I'm sure the neighbors kind of maybe knew she was leaving or out of town. I don't know.
That was kind of my very first thought when I first heard about this, when this first hit the news. I thought maybe she had walked in on a burglary. Because she returned late at night, the night before, 11 o'clock at night, she got back to her house.
So someone had been casing the joint and knew that they were gone.
Yeah.
Okay, and thought, okay, they got an opportunity.
And maybe she walked in on them and was attacked and killed. That was my first thought. So, Of course, the neighbors are thinking, holy shit, this happened. And this is a small community. The houses are very close together. This is not a rural area. It's a normal suburban neighborhood.
Yeah, this is not like out where we live where everyone has guns. They shoot them off in the backyard. That you don't really see your neighbors too much. You see them if you're checking your mail, but that's about it. But in this neighborhood, if you're in your front yard, you see your neighbors, correct? If I'm not mistaken, that's how this house was. This is not like estate homes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the creepy thing I got to tell you is I was up there on Wednesday of last week and I drove by and you don't even have to turn down that street to see the house. The house is like the second house on the street and I have to drive by the street to go where I'm going. And each time I go there, up in that area, I see that house. And the house is very distinguished because most of the houses on that street are normal size houses. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, family style houses. Whereas the Sievers house is massive. There's like this, I think what I read was that they bought 2 lots and combined it into one and built like
one
this
home.
Massive house. So the house sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
And it's just creepy. I don't know. It's just creepy. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, like I said, and now you see why they would be freaked out. Like if there's a psycho killer loose, or is this a robbery? So
5 days after the murder, deputies finally wrapped up their investigation at the home and removed the crime scene tape. The following Monday, July 6, 2015, family and friends hosted a celebration of life for Teresa at the Unity Church of Naples. Family had asked for the media not to attend. Again, back to the interview with Sandra Hoskins, she said Mark was cold towards her at the funeral. His demeanor and his body language and his character didn't fall into place with a man who was mourning. The case had gained national attention by this time. For a time, a conspiracy theory surfaced linking the untimely deaths of other holistic doctors around the state and the country. Doctors Jeff Bradstreet and Bruce Henendahl both died within weeks of each other in June of 2015. Bradstreet was found dead in a river in North Carolina with a gunshot wound to his chest on June 26, 2015. While the police ruled Bradstreet's death a suicide, several family members and anti-vaccine activists claimed that he was murdered in connection with his criticism of vaccines. He believed that vaccines caused autism. He even testified so before Congress. Now, Henendahl was found dead in his car. Although he was described as healthy and fit, they say he died of natural causes. Chiropractor Baron Holt was highly fit at age 33. He was deeply connected to his Christian faith, and his career as a practitioner was booming. Now, Dr. Holt was said to have died of unknown causes around the same time. So
this is similar to like a satanic panic type thing where this happens in so many cases that all of a sudden they kind of gang it together. Like, is this somebody that's coming after these people? Were they afraid like Big Pharma was?
That's, I think, was the conspiracy
that's
theory,
what I thought.
Was that Big Pharma was killing off all these holistic doctors who were supposedly making all these breakthroughs and not using pharmaceuticals, using natural medicine. And, I mean, and maybe some of them, because there actually was, I just named a few, but there actually was a large number of holistic doctors that died under suspicious circumstances around this time frame.
Yeah, it could have just been lack of not using medicine.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
I'm just being honest. But okay, so now finally on July 7th, 2015, Lee County Sheriff Mike Scott broke his silence on the case and finally started answering questions the community and the nation had about Sievers' murder. Sheriff Scott told Wink News this was not a random crime. Sheriff Mike Scott also says Teresa Sievers was targeted in a brutal attack. Our detectives are literally working around the clock. This is all hands on deck, no stones unturned, serious stuff. Based on reason and the evidence we have at this point and working it exhaustively, I'm very comfortable saying it's not random, arbitrary situation, and I do believe there's some connectivity here. To give you an example of how tenacious we are with this, we physically drove the first batch of priority evidence to the lab. We didn't wait for FedEx. We physically got in the car and drove it there, said Scott. He said that the crime scene was very complicated and there's a lot of evidence. That evidence includes a family van as well as a side door. He also said they are using a laboratory outside Lee County to get quicker answers. As for asking residents to lock their doors, Scott says it's something he wants you to do every day whether there is crime or not. And that makes sense.
Right.
In this day and age. And I guess to some extent, that's always been the case.
You know what freaks me out? Whenever there's like a show or something or a podcast and they say these people never locked their doors, that blows my mind because my entire life, I've always kept the doors locked. I grew up, my parents always kept the doors locked. As an adult, I always keep the doors locked. Even when I'm home during the day, all the doors in the house are locked.
Well, a funny thing about that to me, is I have 3 older brothers and a little sister. And I never, I got out of school, middle school. I walked home from middle school, walked right in the house. We never locked the door. And we lived in the city.
Weird.
I mean, there was a house next to us on both sides, all the way around, behind us. And we never locked the door. We just walk in the door.
Oh, I've always locked the doors.
Yeah, even when we were kids, we never locked the doors unless we were approached by strangers.
Okay, so 4 weeks after the murder, investigators went back to the family's home. According to neighbors on Jarvis Road, which is where the murder took place, the scene at the Sievers home looked similar to the scene they saw during the first week of the investigation. Again, there was crime scene technicians and investigators present. Neighbors say they witnessed technicians taking saliva and hair samples from the couple's dogs. Deputies were joined by Teresa's husband, Mark. It's unknown what they were looking for or what they found on this second search.
Now, during all this, Teresa's medical practice was obviously shut down, and it wasn't until about a month after the murder that Mark Sievers sent a message to patients telling them that they found a new doctor to provide phone consultations 3 days a week. Sandra Hoskins left the practice by then, saying she no longer felt comfortable there due to what she describes as Mark's antagonistic behavior. Do you want to describe that?
I don't really know if there was a description of exactly how he was behaving towards Sandra Hoskins, but
it was not normal.
No.
And okay, well, we've got somebody that's going to take your calls 3 days a week. Almost like, and this is only a month after his wife was murdered, his mother of his children, that he's saying, oh, so don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, patients. We have a different doctor for you. If anything were to happen to my wife like that, I whatever you want to think or whatever you want to do, I really don't care. I don't care about the practice right now. It's the last thing on my list.
Well, so little details about the case started to emerge here and there. Now, though Mark Sievers had an alibi, being 1,400 miles away in Connecticut, investigators began to notice his strange behavior.
Well, just to clarify, he legitimately was
in Connecticut.
In Connecticut. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
No. There's a business partner and friend, Lenka Spiska, painted more of a bleak picture of her friend's life, telling detectives 4 days after the homicide that Teresa Sievers was taking medication for depression. Spiska added that Teresa Sievers would sometimes toe the line with other men and tell her husband of her near trysts, which would make him very jealous. She also told the cops that Teresa struggled with addiction and her sexuality. Detectives said that Mark told them Teresa experimented with other partners in the swinger lifestyle. Okay, so all this is coming out.
Yeah, this is one of those things where they always say, make sure you wear clean underwear.
The air the dirty laundry.
Exactly.
All of this personal business is coming out now that she's been murdered. Now, Mark reportedly claimed Teresa fantasized about his best friend, a man named Curtis Wayne Wright. And Curtis and Mark looked eerily similar to each other. They could almost be mistaken for twins.
It was ridiculous.
Yes, they had been best friends since high school. So Mark is saying that Teresa fantasized about this guy. I can't imagine why. Both men are ugly as sin. I mean,
well,
that's
beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
I suppose. Another detail is that there was an IRS lien on the house for nearly $33,000. Court documents indicate that the couple had 5 life insurance policies totaling over $4 million.
That's 5 people.
They were reportedly living paycheck to paycheck prior to the doctor's murder.
That's because sometimes you just overlive your expenditures.
In the months leading up to his wife's killing, Mark Sievers regularly detailed the ups and downs of their relationship in a journal he kept on his cell phone.
See, this is something I didn't know.
He wrote about losing trust in his wife over a perceived relationship, her seemed ambivalence towards him, his unmet desire for regular sex and intimacy, and his feeling like a leech because she was the family's sole breadwinner. The journal entries show Mark Sievers was frustrated, even depressed over the state of his marriage. He was even using a digital calendar to document their sexual encounters. On a couple of occasions, Sievers worried about his weight and attractiveness. By early June, he wrote he was growing less attracted to his wife as well. She said she knows she is attractive to me, and even though we're going through this, well, for her, she loses that physical attraction to me. He wrote on June 5th, 2015, to which I honestly replied quickly, she is losing her physical appeal to me as well. She appreciated my honesty but did not like it. But he wrote on June 24th, 2015, just days before the killing, Teresa and I are in a good place. She has been kissing me unsolicited for the last couple days.
Suspicious?
I don't know that you would call it suspicious. And here's me just playing devil's advocate here. Because I journal sometimes. And when you're actually journaling and you don't think anybody else is going to read it, you write what you think
feelings, yeah.
and what you feel. And I think that there's always a huge difference between how somebody really feels and what they really think and what they actually will put out there to the public, to the world. But in a private journal, that's a different story. So I wouldn't necessarily say that any of this, I mean, in his journals, he's upset because they're not having sex. He's feeling like a leech because she's the family's sole breadwinner. Those seem like kind of normal feelings that a husband and or a wife might have over the course of a marriage.
Was it ever said that she kind of made him feel that way? I mean, I don't.
It was said, and I did hear that she did sort of talk down to him, but that's just a rumor. That's just
well,
something.
that's because they said that she was a tiger at the office. I mean, she was going to get stuff done.
Yeah, she didn't hide her feelings, and we already said that.
Yeah.
I mean, we already put that out there. She was very blunt and didn't sugarcoat things.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but I mean, as far as his journaling and stuff, I mean, you don't think this is so kind of odd? Well, I guess not, because
I don't think it's that odd.
Yeah.
I think it's just a man's feelings.
Okay.
About his marriage.
Okay. Now, let's see, in an initial statement to the Lee County detectives on Monday, June 29th, Mark Sievers said that he and his wife had a good marriage, but they often, quote, got on each other's nerves, which all married couples do. Now, however, in a second interview on Wednesday, July 1st, Mark told investigators that the couple had experimented with other partners and swinging, but was adamant that his wife had never secretly cheated on him. So if they ever did the swinging thing, it was in unison, them together. So now he voluntarily gave up his cell phone to allow investigators to download the contents, which included numerous photos, videos, and even FaceTime chats. That shows that he has had numerous extramarital affairs with multiple women, which to me, that contradicts.
So he's the one having all the affairs.
Yeah, that contradicts his journal entries. See, so that's kind of where you know what I mean?
Well, in his journal entries, he never claimed that he wasn't having affairs. And I think that maybe he's using all of these things that he's saying about how his wife makes him feel and about how they're not having sex. Maybe he's using that as an excuse to have these extramarital affairs.
Justification.
A justification.
Okay. Now, at least one close family friend said that Teresa confided that she was considering divorcing him.
Well, I would too, if my husband was having a bunch of affairs.
But, well, he's now saying that she was doing it too, that they were together doing it.
Well, they were together doing it, but he told the police that she never had a secret affair or cheated on him.
Okay, yeah.
That he knows of. I mean,
I understand.
Nobody knows everything. So in an article with Gulf Shore Life magazine, next door neighbor Kimberly Torres says she got a weird feeling from her neighbor Mark Sievers. She and her husband purchased the home next to the Sievers in 2009 in a short sale from Mark and Teresa when they were facing foreclosures. So the Sieverses had owned the adjoining properties at the time and had lived in the first home while building the second one, the massive one, next door. Torres said that from the day they moved in, Mark Sievers seemed to be always around watching. We did a closing at noon that day, and we were moving things in that night around 5 to 6 p.m., little by little, Torres says. So while I was moving stuff in, Mark came in and was just standing in the hallway, just standing there, staring. And I thought, this used to be your house, but it's not your house anymore. And then there was a time, just a few weeks before the murder, when Mark Sievers appeared on the couple's lanai when the pair was inside one evening. When they confronted him, he had an odd explanation. He said, "Oh, I've just come to see what you've done with the place," Torres says. Now, mind you, we had lived there 6 years at this point, and he had to go through 3 doors to get into the lanai.
Isn't that breaking and entering?
Yeah. How creepy. Like, what would you do if you just look up and you see our neighbor just chilling on the lanai?
Well, from
our creepy-ass neighbor.
Well, from our perspective, there was a creepy incident, which you could probably talk about, that the old owner of the home actually knocked on our door and started telling us that we should have never moved the plants.
Yeah, he was looking in the backyard. He was mad that we cut down some trees. Oh, and yeah, that was creepy.
So now you picture that. Now, this is obviously your next door neighbor, so we can talk about that. It was kind of creepy, but the guy left and you felt a little better. In this situation, this guy leaves, but he's just going right next door. So I could see where that would be very, very eerie. In a press conference that August, that Lee County Sheriff's Office announced they had arrested 2 men in connection with the murder. Curtis Wayne Wright Jr. and Jimmy Ray Rogers, both of Missouri.
Wait, what?
Yeah, both of them from Missouri.
They arrested 2 men in Missouri?
Yeah.
For the murder of Dr. Sievers in Bonita Springs, Florida?
Correct. What's that, 1,100 miles?
All right. Well, that's where we're going to stop for part 1. If you want to binge parts 2, 3, and 4, please go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Paradise After Dark podcast.
Yeah, you can also check out our Etsy store for some awesome Paradise After Dark gear.
Make sure to follow us on social media at Paradise After Dark Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and at Paradise Dark 239 on Twitter. You can also email us at paradiseafterdarkpodcast@gmail.com.
You can also check out our website at paradiseafterdark.com for our latest episodes, links to social media, our Etsy store, and a link to the Patreon page.
Please make sure to subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening on and rate and review. This really helps us branch out to reach a wider audience.
Yes, it really, really does. So thank you, everyone, for listening
to Paradise After Dark.
Dark, dark.